Hey everyone, Mr. Say here. This is a lap guide for Nurburgring GP with the Subaru WRX Gr. Let's get this started. For this lap guide, we are using the Subaru WRX as it is a pretty good handling car for a handling track like Nurburgring GP. We are on the racing soft tires and the brake balance is set to -1 for the time trial, and this is for better braking efficiency, but during the race I moved the brake balance to 0 or even +1. Your first braking point is just as the path on the left ends. You're going to brake hard for a short while, slowly ease off the brakes as you turn in, and try to nail this apex as there's a little dip that can help the car rotate a bit more. Then ease off the throttle for this turn. This left turn is all about throttle control. Then for this next left turn, brake before the green area on the right ends, brake hard for a short moment, slowly ease off of the brakes, and bring yourself all the way onto the curbs for additional rotation. Then do a little bit of throttle control, just trying to carry a lot of speed through that turn, and you can go a little bit wide through the exit of the turn, just don't go too wide, otherwise you'll get an off-track penalty. Then brake just as the track piece on the right ends, quick burst of braking, bring yourself towards the left, and then brake just as the curb on the left ends. Brake hard for a short moment, and when you get on the throttle, you want to fully commit to it. Stay on the left side of the track, look for the start of the curb on the left as you want to brake just after it starts. So you're going to brake right around here, brake hard for a short while, slowly ease off of the brakes as you turn in, and as you hit the apex, gradually get under the throttle to build a fast exit. These S's can be taken flat out, but for most cars, you might want to do a little bit of a lift off of the throttle as you go through the S's. Bring yourself towards the right, brake before you reach the 100-meter board, so brake hard for a short moment, slowly ease off of the brakes as you turn in, bring yourself towards the left, and you want to go for a late turn in, so use a little bit of braking just before the curb on the right starts. Just try to go for a late turn in once again so you can get a fast exit. Eventually bring yourself towards the right side of the track, and this is where it gets a little tricky with this chicane. Brake before you reach the 100-meter board, brake hard for a short while, ease off of the brakes as you turn in, and use a little bit of throttle for a bit of stability. Keep two wheels on the curbs so you don't get an off-track penalty. You need to do a lot of throttle control to try to make sure that the car doesn't spin out. Then brake just after the dry patch of grass on the left starts, and go for a late apex so you can get a fast exit. But that is pretty much it for the lap guide. Let's go ahead and take a look at the strategies. For this race, we are doing 10 laps at Nurburgring GP, so this is not the Nordschleife, this is not the 24-hour layout, this is just the GP section. So we're doing 10 laps here with the Group 3 cars, and the fuel is a ×1, so fuel is not an issue at all, but the tire wear is a ×7, so tire wear is a pretty big issue. The racing soft and medium tires are both available and required to be used in the race, so you do need to use both tire compounds for at least one lap, so you don't get a 1-minute penalty after the race ends. And the general race strategy for this race is going to be a pretty straightforward one stop just for a tire change. So if you've noticed the usual pattern for these daily races, it's going to be pretty much the same thing where you pit somewhere halfway into the race to switch over to the other tires that you haven't used yet. So let's say you're starting in the front, start on the racing soft tires, and halfway into the race switch over to the racing medium tires. And if you're starting in the middle or in the back of the pack, start on the racing medium tires, halfway into the race switch on over to the racing soft tires. And once again, because fuel is a ×1, you don't have to worry about doing any sort of fuel saving. You don't have to refuel. Fuel is not an issue. But the tire wear rate, it is pretty high. It's a ×7, so you can potentially see some people pitting in as early as lap 4, because the tire wear, it makes it really easy for you to stretch your tires, whether it's through sliding or driving really aggressively or any other reason. So you'll want to keep an eye on your tires. Just try to drive smoothly, adjust your brake balance to try to even out the tire wear. So for example, in the Subaru WRX, you can leave the brake balance at 0, but you can also bring it to +1, as the front tires are the ones that wear out a bit faster than the rear tires. And that is just one example of the brake balance usage. For other cars, the brake balance that you want to be using, it'll depend on the car that you're using and a bit on your own driving style. So yeah, tire wear, pretty big issue. You want to be a little careful once the tires start to wear out, as the tire wear, it can catch you by surprise. I think it almost caught me by surprise at one point. So if you see someone having a bit of a hard time with the tire wear, then you can easily take advantage of them, as long as you yourself are careful as well, because you also have to deal with the tire wear as well. So your pit window is pretty much from laps 4 to 6, and it doesn't matter which tire you're on, as most people will be pitting around this time to switch from the racing soft to medium tires, or vice versa. So for example, with me, I'm pitting at the end of lap 5, switching on over from the racing soft to the racing medium tires, and that's pretty much going to be the most common time that people will be pitting at the end of lap 5. But there will be some people pitting early at the end of lap 4, or pitting a bit later at the end of lap 6. And your pit loss is going to be around 20 to 21 seconds. Once again, this is just for a tire change. And as you exit the pit stop, brake before the 50-meter board before you cross the white line that goes across the track, as you don't want to brake past that lane exiting the pit stop, otherwise you will end up overshooting the turn. And you saw me being a bit on the inside of the turn just because there was someone coming up, so I wanted to make sure I was able to defend third place or my current position. So if you do see someone coming up on you, just stay on the inside, and hopefully that will kind of make the other car think twice about trying to overtake you, as trying to overtake you from the outside, especially on a very sharp hairpin like that, is pretty difficult. And you'll see this in action one lap later. So at the end of lap 6, so I'm already on the racing medium tires. James Bond is about to switch on over to the racing medium tires. He comes out of the pit stops and he's going to hang on the inside of the track, and it pretty much makes it impossible for me to get an outside overtake on him, so he's able to defend first place. As for the go-to car for this race, this one, there isn't exactly a good answer to that question. Lots of cars can perform pretty well here, whether it is because they have good acceleration, or because they have really good handling, or because they have really good tire wear. So really, it can go any way. If you're in a mid-engine rear-wheel drive car, you do want to be a little careful because your rear tires do take a bit of a beating, which can mean that your car will become sketchy. So if you're using a car like the Audi R8 LMS, the Ferrari 458, the Lamborghini Huracan, you want to be a little careful with those cars, as those cars can get really sketchy as the rear tires wear out. So the front engine wheel drive cars, they will be a bit better to be used for this race, but it doesn't exactly mean that they'll be the most dominant. Cars like the Peugeot RCZ Group 3 and the Porsche 911 RSR, they are mid-engine wheel drive cars as well, but those two cars are pretty good on the tire wear, so there is a chance that you'll be seeing them being driven around. They're pretty easy cars to drive, and the tire wear rate isn't too bad. And for front engine wheel drive cars, this one is a bit more mixed. You will see a couple of Subaru WRXs. It's a pretty good handling car with good tire wear, but other than that, this is going to be a bit more of bring whatever car you want to drive here, as there's lots of cars that can do pretty well. But anyways, let's go ahead and quickly show places to overtake and the penalty serving zone, starting off with the main straight, which is where we're at right now. This is one great place to get the overtake done. Try to get the inside line to nail the apex. And after that, it is going to be a single file line for a while. And this track, it can be a bit difficult to get an overtake done, so be aware of that, especially with the high tire rates. The next potential spot to get the overtake done is through this little section over here, especially if a car in front of you got a really bad exit, with the next place to get the overtake done being this other mini back straight. And here is also the only penalty serving zone, so if you have a penalty to serve, you'll be serving it right here. And we're skipping over towards the longer back straight, as this is one of the better places to get the overtake done. Hopefully you can try to get past the car before you have to go through the chicane, so you don't have to go too wide and end up accidentally going off track, get an off track penalty, or risk an incident happening. And this part right here is also a last place where it is possible to get the overtake done, especially if the car in front of you got a really messy exit out of the final chicane. But yeah, that is pretty much it for this guide. This is a bit of an interesting week for the daily races, especially with Daily Race C. So to quickly summarize this is a one-stop race where both the racing soft and medium tires are required for this race. And yeah, you only want to pit once, and this is because of the high tire rates, so do be a little careful about how you're driving the car. Your pit window is at the end of laps 4 to the end of lap 6, so you'll be seeing most people pit around lap 5. A couple people will pit earlier at lap 4, and some will pit a bit later at the end of lap 6. And in terms of go-to cars for this race, there isn't exactly a good answer to that, but some of the more notable cars that are worth at least taking a look at are the Subaru WRX, the Porsche 911 RSR, and the Peugeot WRX. But once again, these are just a couple of the potentially good cars here, but there are a lot of cars that can do well here at Daily Race C. But that is pretty much it for this guide. And I know I did mention that I was going to start my little hiatus after the Nations Cup guide that I made last night, but I decided to actually make these daily race guides and then start my hiatus, which is pretty much now. So I'll be gone for a bit, just taking a short break from editing, but I will be doing some testing in the background, so I'll still be making the strategy charts but not the videos, so keep an eye out for that. You'll be seeing them popping up on my Twitter and on the communities page on my YouTube channel. But anyways, that is all from me. I'm going to go ahead and sign off now. So this is Mr. CA wishing you a good race, and I'll see you in the next video.